Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just get started then. A little bit of an introduction for myself. My name is Josh Hunsaker, the Customer Solutions Trainer here at BidSync, and I'll be taking you through the system today. Just as I said a second ago, what we're going to be covering today is 1, how to create a bid, and then 2, how to save that bid to the held bids section. So that's kind of the working platform, or where you go to continue to revise bids and make changes on them while it's waiting before it goes live. And we're also going to take a look at the approval process, so what it takes to get your bid approved, for 1, to trigger the approval process, and 2, what it takes to actually approve a bid if you are the approver. So to get us started, you should all be able to see my screen right here. We're going to start, actually let me zoom in just a little bit so you can have a little bit more of a view there. We're going to start with just the creation process. It's very simple, very quick and easy. We're just going to come up here to Source and then click Create Bid. As you click Create Bid, this takes you directly into the creation process. And our first step on here is to select kind of the building blocks of our bid. So we're going to take a look. We have several different bid types right here, and depending on the bid type that you choose, that may determine what kinds of documents and other options may be available on the next page. Now, we don't have time today to go through the process of every single bid type, but in the BidSync system, the nice thing is that the process for creating a bid is the same no matter which type of a bid you're creating. So if you're doing an RFP or an RFQ or a quick quote, the process for creation is the same for all of them. The system may handle a quick quote a little bit differently than it handles an RFP, but the process for creation is the same. Today we're going to go ahead and create an RFP, just a simple one today. So I'll select RFP as my bid type, and then below there, if this is a construction RFP, I would want to make sure that I check that construction box right there. And what that does is it turns on a few construction features on the account for us to be able to use throughout the system. Today's bid, I'm just going to do a simple one that's not a construction RFP, so I'm going to leave that checkbox blank. That way the system knows not to label this particular bid as a construction bid. Below there I have what's called my budgeted amount. The budgeted amount is an internal amount for you to be able to use to be able to see exactly how much you have available for this project or for this bid. You'll notice 2 things about this one. 1, it has a little star, which means that you have to fill it in. You can't leave that blank. And then to the right it has a little note that says this amount will never be shown to the suppliers. Okay, so it's just for internal communication. Another reason you have to fill out the budgeted amount is because it can be used for approval processes down the road. So we're going to make sure we fill this in right here. Our bid is going to be fairly small. I'm just going to do 10,000 right here. And then I'll click Next Page. Actually, sorry, let's get into the bid response models. The response models right here, in the response models you have 3 options. There's electronic response, paper response, and then paper response with electronic tabulation. The first one here, electronic response, when you have this one selected, which will be selected by default, it means that the system is going to send out invitations to all the vendors that match this bid, and they can access all the documentation. They'll respond to the bid through BidSync. Now if you choose paper response, it means that you can still notify vendors electronically through email on our system, and they can still access all the bid documents on our system, but when it comes time to actually submit their bid, they'll have to submit that outside of the system. And then when it comes time for you to award, you award to the vendor outside of the system. The last option here, paper response with electronic tabulation, allows you to do the same thing as paper response. You notify online, and then the vendors respond through paper, but once you receive those responses, with this option here, you can actually award the bid through BidSync. So you can upload all the offers into BidSync and make the tabulation and award in the system. For ours, we're going to go with the electronic response. That's the one you'll most likely be using in the system, so we're going to choose that one for our bid. And then we'll click Next Page to take us over to the actual bid creation process. It's really a 2-page process. The first page that we just left was kind of laying the building blocks or the foundation for our bid. Now we're going to get into the actual bidding process where we can put in some more specific information. Now up here at the top, you can see a little bit of what we chose on the previous page. First off, you can see we have RFP right there. We have construction, no, this is not a construction bid. And then below that, we have bid participation. In the bid participation section, this allows us to do a couple of different things. First off, it allows us to choose a tentative release date, which is optional. You don't have to do this. And in fact, we're not going to put a tentative release date on our bid today because we're going to submit it for approval today. What the tentative release date allows you to do is allows you to specify a date right here. And then if you check this box saying make actual release date, when that date and time comes, if the bid has been approved, it will be released automatically at 8 a.m. that day. And so that just allows you to release the bid at a specific date and time that you specify rather than having to release it manually. Below there, you can also add that tentative release date to your agency calendar, which is found under the source menu. That's just an internal communication calendar where you can post end dates and pre-bid conference information. And then you have the option to add the end date and pre-bid conference date to that agency calendar. And we're going to select that one. So that'll add both of our end date and our pre-bid conference date to this calendar right here. Below there, we have our bid duration. Now this is the first real bidding field that we're going to come across on this page. This is the deadline for your bid. Now an important thing to note with the deadlines in BidSync, especially on electronic response bids, is these are hard deadlines. So the vendor has to have their offer completely submitted by this date and time or they can't submit the bid at all. So I have this listed as May 25th. It's automatically 30 days out, but I can go ahead and change that by clicking on the little calendar and choosing a different date. Whoops, pull that back up. So let's go ahead and say that we want this one to be closed on April 29th, for example. And then we can choose the end time as any 15-minute increment. Again, this is a hard deadline, so the vendors have to have their offers completely submitted and confirmed by that date. Even if they're on the confirmation page, if that deadline hits, then they can't submit their offer. The next section on here is also a hard deadline. This is the question and answer duration. This is the end date for any questions and answers on the bid. So on your bid, you have the ability to specify an end date for your Q&A section, meaning that the vendors have to have all of their questions submitted before that date and time. Otherwise, they cannot submit questions. You can still respond to questions after that date and time, but no new questions can be posted by the vendors. For ours, we're going to go ahead and leave that blank. If you leave it blank, that means that the vendors can post questions all the way up until whatever the bid deadline is. So in this case, they can post questions up to April 29th. Okay, our next section on here is our pre-bid conference. In the pre-bid conference, this is where you're going to specify information about a specific job walk or maybe a pre-bid meeting of some kind. It's very easy to use. All you do is click the Add button right here, and this will allow you to add information in for the conference. So for example, you have two options. You can either do an online conference or a conference at a specific location. The nice thing about the online conferences is that it will automatically track who attends and who doesn't, and it'll automatically track the transcript that you can choose to make available to the vendors later. The downside to the online conference is that it is just an online chat room. There's no video or audio to be played there, but you do have the ability to record that transcript. If you choose to do a conference at a specific location, you'll just choose that option and then type in the address. So just type in 123 Main Street, and you can put in the rest of the address there as well as any instructions such as please park in the side parking lot or please enter through the side door, whatever you'd like to specify there. And then after that, you can specify the date and time. No matter which one you choose, online or at a specific location, you'll have to choose the date and time. So I'm going to do April 27th at 10 a.m. And then below there I can choose to mark this as optional attendance, mandatory attendance, or not applicable. If I choose mandatory attendance, it doesn't impede the vendors from placing an offer if they don't attend, but it does allow you to track that information to be able to reject the vendors if they choose not to attend. Once you've chosen the options that you would like for this pre-bid conference, you can go ahead and just click Submit at the bottom of that window. And that will add, scroll up a little bit, that will add your pre-bid conference to your bid right here. And you can, of course, add in multiple pre-bid conferences if you would like to. It's just up to you what you would rather do there. Below there, we get into a little bit more specific information for this bid in our contract duration section. This is where we can specify how long this contract will actually last by specifying our contract duration time. And this is done in a couple different ways. We can either do a specified time frame in this drop-down box, which means we can put in a number. So I could say 12 and then choose days, months, or years. So I could do 12 months, 365 days, or 2 years, 24 months, whatever you'd like to do there. You also have the option, if it's just a one-time purchase, to choose one-time purchase, which of course there wouldn't be a contract duration, so that other section goes away. But if you do have a contract duration, or this is a contract that is going to last for a certain amount of period and then terminate or close, then you'd want to make sure you specify the specified time frame there. Our contract renewal dropdown, you can see it just has some generic options for you to choose for renewal. If you ever have any options that you would like added to this list, please let us know and we'll be happy to add those in for you. But essentially this just tells the vendors if there are any renewal periods, what the renewal options are, a little bit of information about that just so that they know going into this that it's a 5-year contract, but they have to renew every year, or they have to qualify every year, something like that. Just gives them a little bit more information. The next field is our price is good for. In the price is good for field, this is where you can go to specify how long the vendors have to honor the pricing that they submit to you. So in this case, it's set to 30 days, or I could choose not applicable. But if 30 days is set as the price is good for time frame, it means that the vendors have to honor the pricing that they submit to you for 30 days after the bid closes. So in other words, you have 30 days to make sure that to basically make an award decision, because after that the vendors can technically raise their prices. Below there you have your budgeted amount. This is carried over from the previous page. Again, this is never shown to the suppliers. It's just for internal purposes. And then you have your estimated amount. Now the estimated amount is a little different from the budgeted amount. This one will be shown to the suppliers, so make sure that you're aware of that. And this estimated amount right here is more intended to be kind of like a targeted price tool. So if our budgeted amount is $10,000, we might say our estimated amount is closer to $8,000. That way we can tell the vendors, hey, we're looking to spend about this much money, but we're not telling them how much we actually can spend on this particular bid. So that's a great tool as a targeted price tool. You can leave it blank if you choose, but one way or the other, it's just a great tool to be able to target a specific price. Okay, our next section on here is our bid information. In the bid information section, this is where we can start to provide a little bit more identifiable information for this particular bid. Up to this point, we've really just been adding kind of generic information, just the building blocks of the bid. But this is where we can go to start putting in information like our specific bid number if we have one. If you don't have a bid number, you can leave that blank and the system will automatically assign one for you. And then below there you have your bid title section, which you can use to specify what this bid is actually for. Now this test bid that we're doing today, I'm going to mark this as office supplies, saying that we're purchasing some office supplies, and you could be more specific than that. Ours is going to be for some office furniture, so maybe I'll say office supplies and furniture. But whatever you specify here, just make sure that it's less than 80 characters. That's your maximum, is the 80 characters. Below there you have a bid comments section, which is kind of like a bid description section. You can really put whatever you'd like in here. There's not a very small limit here. It's actually up to about 10 to 20 pages worth of information. So you can really put a lot of information here. Of course, if you have that information on your bid, you'll likely want to upload that as an attachment rather than just pasting it in as text. But whatever you put here, make sure that it's something that describes the bid to the vendors so that they know what it is they're getting into. And it's also a great place to put any requirements that the vendors have to meet. So for example, I could go ahead and say this bid is for the procurement of office supplies and furniture. And then I'll specify desks, chairs, and reams of paper. And then I could also say something along the lines of all vendors must be locally headquartered in order to qualify for award on this bid. And you can put whatever you'd like there. You can use any of these formatting tools to dress it up a little bit, make it stand out a little bit more to the vendors, whatever you really would like to do there. Once we move past this section, we get into our additional offer fields and our line items section. These two areas go hand in hand with what they allow you to do. This is where we're going to put in specific information as far as what the bidders are going to be placing an offer on. Now, when it comes to adding line items in the system, normally when you create a line item, it's going to allow the vendors to place an offer and put in unit price and total price and some notes. Now, if you have additional information that you need to extract from the vendors, you kind of need to ask yourself, okay, is this information better presented in a document, or can I just put it into a line item? If you'd like information such as warranty period on a specific item, that's probably information you could put on the line item to make it a little easier on the vendors. So for example, if I wanted to do that, I would want to create an additional offer field here as warranty period and click add and then close. That's going to create a little field for me on my line items. So now when I click add line item to add my actual items in here, I can go ahead and say just a basic item. And let's go ahead with this first item right here, and we'll say that this is for office desks. I can go ahead and specify an estimated amount if I would like to for this particular item. I'll choose my unit as each, my delivery location. I can choose from my list of delivery locations for my organization. So I'll choose the main office there and say that we are looking for 15 desks. And I could say down here, solid wood desks, or some other type of description of these. Now at the very bottom, I can see a little area that says additional offer fields, just like we created our warranty period. It now shows up on the bid, and if it's selected right there, that means that the vendors have to fill out that field before they can place an offer on the bid. Or that field will be available and they have to fill it out in order to place an offer on the bid. Now before we click save or go on to the next item, one other thing to note on the line items is the pricing type. Now with a normal bid, you're going to just mark it as price like we have with this bid. What price allows you to do is the vendors will then be able to go into the system and put in a unit price and a total price based off of the quantity that you specify here. And they can also put in some notes and upload attachments. If you choose a negative price, it means that whatever price the vendors enter there, it's intended to be deducted from their total bid amount. So something like a rebate or reimbursement amount. The percentage option allows the vendors to put in a percent instead of a dollar value. And this percent is supposed to be something like a percent discount that you're offering the vendors are offering to you. And then no price doesn't allow the vendors to put in any price, but it does still allow them to upload attachments and put documents and notes onto this line item. So that's a good one for RFPs where you're not necessarily looking for a simple cost, but you might have a very advanced cost breakdown that they can upload rather than just putting in a single price. For ours, we're going to mark this as price. We've filled everything else out, and then I can click next item to go on to the next item. And we'll do this one as office chairs. In the description, I'll just call this comfortable office chairs. And then I can pretty much leave everything else the same. It carried over the delivery location and the quantity. We have price selected still. And then at the bottom, I'll make sure that I still have my warranty period selected, and I can go to the next item. The last item on here is reams of paper. And I already have my price selected, my main office, my quantity. I'll just type in here reams of paper. And then I can go ahead and I'll remove the warranty period because I don't necessarily need a warranty on a ream of paper. So I'll remove that so it doesn't show up for the vendors to respond to. And then one more quick note before we leave. This little page right here, the unit that we have listed as each allows us to see, okay, price per each unit of paper or each ream of paper. But that can cause a little bit of confusion for the vendors, so you can actually search for a different unit. I'm going to do ream for this one, so price per ream of paper. That makes a little bit more sense. There's not a lot of confusing that in the system. Now you can add custom fields in here. You just have to let us know over here at BidSync and we'll add those in for you, but you are welcome to add in custom fields there. Now that we've got all the information on here, I'm going to click done, and that will save my line items to my line items section right here. You can see I have 3 items listed, and those are the 3 items that will be displayed to the vendors. Now when it comes to the line items, you also have the ability to add line items in groups. So if you have a large construction project, you can create different sections or groups of line items. For example, one section for line items that are, let's say, plumbing line items, and then another section for electrician line items, and then another section for general contractor line items. So you'll be able to organize these into different sections that allow the responses from the vendors to just be a little bit more organized. And you also have the ability to import line items. So if you have a bid with more than, say, 10, it might be faster to put those line items into a spreadsheet and then just click import. In order to do that, you'll click the little button here, browse for your file. It has to be saved as a CSV, so it can be Excel, but it just has to be saved as CSV. And if you need help, you can click on the little help icon right there, and this will actually give you, this will give you a step-by-step guide in how to create that file and then how to upload it into the system. Now we're going to move past our line items here into the documents section. Within the documents section, you're going to see a list of what we call standard documents on your account. These are documents that have already been uploaded to the account that you can quickly and easily just select to include them on your bid. Now with these documents, keep in mind that these documents are electronic forms, so the vendors do have to fill them out individually. So if you have a document, let's take a look at one really quick. See if this one allows us to see it. And my browser's a little strange, so it shows up a little odd here, but it allows you to see exactly what the document has. In this case, you can see there's just some check boxes down the line here, and then some fields for the vendors to fill in. It looks much cleaner than this when the vendors view it, but because of my browser, it sometimes shows up a little odd. But you can go through each of these documents and take a look at which document is what, so you know which ones you need to attach to your bid. Once you do attach those just by checking the little box right here, the vendors will be required to click on that document and fill it out if there are any fields to fill out, and then save it using their password, which acts as a signature. So essentially they're signing it saying, I intend to be bound by these documents or these instructions in this bid. Below there, you also have the ability, of course, to upload your own documents, which we refer to as bid-specific documents because they only show up on a specific bid. To do that, you'll just click Upload Document, and you can choose the file from your computer. Go to my Documents page. Choose my sample document here and click Open, and then Upload File, and that will upload that document to the bid. Sometimes it has to go through a short decrypting or a scanning process to make sure there's nothing wrong with the document, but that will save the document to your bid so that the vendors can then access it. Now when you're doing this, you'll notice when you upload something, you have a little checkbox right here that says Convert to Web Form. If you check this box, it'll give you a spot for instructions, and that'll actually send the document over to us here at BidSync for us to convert it and turn it into an electronic document just like these documents here. Now when you do that, please keep in mind that it doesn't get sent to us until after you save the bid, and when it does get sent to us, we ask that you give us 1 day or 1 business day to turn those documents around and get them converted for you. If you choose not to check this box, which if you just have a document that they need to read, they don't necessarily need to fill it out, but they just need to read it, you'll just leave that box unchecked and the vendor will receive the document and they'll be required to click on it to view it before they can place an offer on the bid. Once you have all your documents listed here, you can click Done. And that will list your document right here at the bottom of the list, as well as show any documents that you've selected. You can reorder these documents by clicking the reorder link up here on the top right to be able to change how these display or how they're showing up here. But for the most part, this is how, whatever the order the documents are in on this section right here, is how they'll be displayed to the vendors. And I'll show you how you can see that in a little bit. Below this section, we have our classification section. Now the classification section is a very important step. You want to make sure you take your time with it. The classification section allows you to choose classification codes, and those classification codes is what is going to be used to notify the vendors about this bid. So for example, if I come in here and click Select Classification Codes and I search by a keyword, let's try office supplies. And I choose a couple of codes here and click Add Selected. I didn't really read through those before I added them, but let's say I add a few codes here. The system is only going to notify vendors that have at least one of these 3 codes and do business in your area. So it's a great way for you to reach out to local vendors that you may not have even known are in your area or provide what you're looking for in your area. Now, kind of a rule of thumb here, the more codes you add, the more vendors we can notify. Especially being in California, you have a very large pool of vendors that actively use BidSync that you can take advantage of here. I've seen bids go out to literally thousands of vendors before, and you can really get a good turnout from being able to reach so many vendors in the system. Now let's scroll down just a little bit further here. Next, we have our required vendor qualifications. In this section right here, this is where you can go to see any qualifications that your agency currently requires for vendors to fill out. On this particular account, this is your training account, so it may be a little bit different from your live environment. It looks like in your live environment you do have a W-9 form, but it's not currently being used, so you may not even see this section show up right here. But if you do, basically what you're saying, if you check the box next to this, you're saying the vendors have to fill out this W-9 form before they can place an offer on the bid. Our next section here is our vendors section. In the vendors section, this is where you can go to specify to the vendors, or excuse me, you can specify to the system which vendors this bid is going to go out to. Now by default, you should have public selected and notify suggested vendors down here, which will notify any vendor that has one of these 3 codes selected and does business in your area. Now you can, if you would like to, you can mark this bid as private, which means that only vendors that you specifically invite using the vendor search tool right here will actually be able to access this bid. So if you mark it as private and then you click invite vendors, and this takes us over to our vendor search tool, you can search for a specific vendor. So I'll say Jerry, search by the last name. Say I'm not sure what his company is called, so I'll just search by what I have. And it'll come up with some search results for me. And I can go ahead and select Jerry's Office Supplies and click add. And that vendor will be added to our list of invited vendors. And then when I click return to editing, that vendor is listed in my list of invited vendors. So that means that Jerry's Office Supplies is going to receive a notification about this bid, even if he doesn't have the right classification codes on his account. In fact, if I choose private and I invite Jerry's and then I just release this bid, it means that nobody except for Jerry will be able to access this bid, and nobody else will receive a notification for it. So by selecting private, you're overriding this notify suggested vendors. It even says suggested vendors will not be notified on private bids because you're only giving access to the couple vendors that you select right here. Alternatively, you can choose regional, which allows you to specify a distance from a zip code, and only vendors within that area that have one of the classification codes you've specified would receive notice of this bid. Now, if we choose public, like we're going to for our bid, and then we invite a vendor, it means that Jerry's Office Supplies will receive a notification about this bid regardless of what classification codes he has on his account. Now, I say that kind of with a grain of salt there, because if Jerry, this company right here, Jerry's Office Supplies, if they have turned off their notifications or have stopped notifications from BidSync, then we can't notify him even if you chose him specifically. That doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. It's important to be aware of that if they have turned off their notifications, there's not a way for us to notify them. Below here at the bottom, we're going to skip over the co-op section. At the very bottom, you have your bid contacts. This is where you can specify who the contact is going to be for this bid. So by default, it's going to have you as the creator, but if somebody else needs to be able to answer questions on this bid, respond to the bid questions, or post addenda or amendments on this bid, that person needs to be added to the contact name by clicking add contact right here. And you can choose what information needs to be available to the vendors, but unless that person is an admin, they cannot edit or make any changes to your bid unless they are on this list right here. So to do that, you just click add contact. You'll choose the person from your organization on this list right here. So I could choose Isara right here and add her as a contact. So you can see now both of us are contacts, so that she will actually be able to access my bid and make changes to it or answer questions on it. Now when I'm finished here, I'm going to click Save Bid, and that's going to automatically save this bid to my held bids section. So we're going to click Save right here. We can see it assigned a bid number to our bid, and it posted that bid in our held area. To get to the held bids section, you can just click Return to Bid List, and that'll take us right back into that section. So you can see office supplies and furniture listed right here. It has me as the contact currently, and it's currently saved in this section. Up here on the top right, you can kind of see where this bid is. We are in the held bids section. That means that this is where the bid can still be worked on. We can still make changes to it. And once that bid goes live, it'll be in the current bid section, which you can see is blank. And then once that bid hits its deadline or it closes, it moves to the to be awarded bids section, where we can make an award decision and actually send out award notifications for that bid. Now ours is in the held bids section currently, and at this point we can still make changes to the bid if we need to. I can click on the title of the bid to see all of the information that we've saved on this bid. So everything we did up to this point is all saved right here. I can see the documents on this bid, the line items. I can even scroll up to the top and click Vendor View of Bid and it'll show me from the perspective of a vendor what this bid will look like. So it's a great tool to be able to see exactly how the vendors are going to see your bid. And then I'll go ahead and close out of this page. Let's go back a step. If I need to make any kind of changes on this bid, I can click the revise link over here on the right. I can copy this bid, which would start the creation process over, but would allow me to create a duplicate of this bid and make adjustments along the way. I can also delete this bid if I would like to just start over and completely wipe the slate clean. And then I have a little packet icon that I can use to generate a PDF packet of this bid. And that's the bid packet that's going to be generated when the bid is released as well. Now up to this point our bid is saved. Others can access it to make changes on it as well, but it hasn't gone through the approval process yet. In order for us to trigger the approval process, we need to check the box right here under the Ready column. So we'll check that box and then click the Ready for Approval button. And this will take us into the approval page, and that'll take just a second to load for us. Sometimes in the training environment it goes a little bit slower. Okay, a lot slower for some reason right now. There we go. So once that page refreshes, it'll take you to this page where you can type in your password to confirm that you would like to submit this bid through the workflow, and just click Ready Bids. And as you click Ready Bids, it'll take you back to your held bids section, and you can see that little box is gone, but now we have a status next to our bid that says Approval Pending. If we click on the title of the bid right here, and we click on, there's a new section here called Approval. If we click on the View Approval Flow, this will show us which user it is that this is pending. And if we click on that, it'll even show us their phone number, their email address, how long it's been pending. And we can also come in here to cancel the workflow if we need to go back and make a few more changes. And we can view the workflow history if it's been denied or approved in the past. Okay, and so that's how we're going to trigger the workflow. For those of you that will be required to actually perform or approve a workflow, your steps are actually fairly easy in the system. I'm going to log out, and we'll just log right back in as a new user here. So once you get logged in as the approver, if you look over on the left-hand side, any bids that are awaiting your approval, you'll be able to see those listed right here. So you can click on the bid here to access the approval, or you can go to the View Bids page and then to the Held Bids page and check the box that say View Bids Awaiting My Approval, and it'll show you any bids that are awaiting your approval. But the easiest way is from the home page to just click on the bid number right there. This will take you right into the bid information page where you can review the bid to make sure it has all the appropriate information listed and that it has the appropriate documents and the line items have been created correctly. Once you're satisfied with the bid, you can go ahead and click View Approval Flow. And then on the right-hand side, you can either approve or deny the bid. If you deny the bid, you'll need to put in some comments here explaining why you denied the bid, and that will trigger an email back to the creator of the bid to let them know, hey, your bid was denied, here's why we denied it. And you can basically say, go in and fix these things and resubmit it, or you can say, you know what, we're not going to be approving funding for this, whatever you need to. But to approve the bid, we're just going to hit the Approve button and then type in our password right here and click Submit. And that marks our step in the approval process as approved. And now if I close this page, the approval status is now approved. So if we go back out to the view bids area, that bid has now been readied, or it's approved, meaning that it's ready to be released out to the public, which can be done by checking the release box right here and clicking release bids. Okay, now to release the bid, that means we're going to publish it out to the public. Now, a lot of you may not be going through that process yourselves, but it's good sometimes to see how that process takes place. Once that bid is approved, likely it'll be somebody else releasing the bid for you, but you can go, that person will go ahead and check the box right here and then click release bids and then type in their password and click release bids at the bottom, and that publishes the bid. It moves it from held bids over to the current bids where it is now listed. You can see how much time is left, how many offers there are, if there are offers on the bid. And now, in order to revise the bid, it would require an addendum or an amendment to the bid. That way, everything is kept kind of transparent so the vendors know when changes are made.